Welcome to Madlit Musings, the podcast where we dive into the minds of authors, exploring the profound realms of faith, social issues, and the delightful world of entertainment. I'm your host, Jaime Jo Wright, and on this literary journey, you never quite know what you're going to get. Here's the video.
No, it's fine.
Hey everyone, it's Jaime Jo at Madlit Musings, and I'm excited today because I have Creston Mapes with us, who is an author, prolific author, and I'm just really excited to have you here. Welcome.
We've been chatting a little bit, and it's so good to finally meet you. I see your name everywhere, so it's great.
Oh, I've seen your name everywhere too, so I kind of feel like I'm, talking with somebody who knows what it's like to write a book.
No, really, thanks for having me. This will be fun.
As we were hopping on, we were talking about, is this going to be on video? And I'm like, well, I do have a YouTube channel, and sometimes people want the video and sometimes they don't. So
Oh, that's fine. Yeah.
we can do it on video. It's fun to do the YouTube video because then people get to actually see the author
Right.
versus hear their voice. But, some authors are like, I'm not the kind that has to like prep. So you get me in hoodies and you get what you get. So
Yeah, same here. So we're good. We're on the same.
Oh, fun. Okay, so for readers who may not be familiar with you, give us just kind of an overview of your books. You've got a lot of books out and they're exciting. So tell us about what you write.
Okay. Gosh, my very first book was about a rock star on trial for murder.
Oh, right.
It's called Dark Star. You can get that free if you go to my website and sign up for my newsletter. But I always, I guess you'd call it contemporary Christian fiction,
Mm-hmm.
suspense. Got to have the suspense.
Oh, yeah.
The kind of reader I am, and that's the kind of books I write. Concise description,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of tension. Got to find out what happens next. Turn up the heat. You discombobulate the reader. As I write my books, I have notes on my desk that, say things like that to keep turning up the heat. And
Yeah.
so, that's the kind of books I love to read. So that's what I write.
That sounds great. I would call you probably a high octane writer. That's what I always like to say. If they're like the fast paced, lots of stuff going on.
Yeah. But the funny thing is, I write so slowly, you never know that. We were talking before. I don't
Right.
play. So I just sit there and figure things out. So yeah,
Mhm.
hopefully, people often say these books are too short. Well, they read them fast,
Right.
but I write them slow. So
Yeah, it is kind of funny, and I'm sure you probably get them too, like where you get the emails from somebody going, "Can you just write faster? Can you just get the books out faster?" And you're like, "I only have so much brain."
they don't know what they're saying. I can't
No,
tell that.
no, not at
So much
all.
work goes into each book, but
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I just really truly have to sit there and figure out what's going to happen next.
Mm-hmm.
And what I do is I put ideas at the end of my manuscript for
Okay.
what can happen to each character.
Uh-huh.
And that way, if I hit a standstill, I'll go to the end and look over some of my ideas
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
maybe take one of those routes.
Now, when you're planning your book, well, I shouldn't say planning, but when you're writing your book, do you know who your villain's going to be, or does that sometimes surprise you? Because it surprises me on a regular basis.
No, I don't know.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
like I remember distinctly with my book, Nobody, I got halfway through it and I told my wife, I still don't know who did it. And she said, well, that's good. If you don't know, the reader's not going to know.
Right. Right. Right.
Yeah, it's scary, as to
Mm-hmm.
write that way. But I
Mm-hmm.
think that's one of the reasons I write so slowly is I kind of try and make sure this is
Yeah.
all going to work out.
Right. Right. Well, and you
You
have to make sure all the plots actually get tied up at the end and it's believable too. I mean, you don't necessarily want it to be so out there.
That's key.
Yeah.
One of my most recent books, I Am in Here.
Mm-hmm.
It's about a boy who's had a traumatic brain injury, but he can see and understand everything that's going on,
Mm.
and people don't know that.
Yeah.
Anyway, I was talking to one of my best friends when I was coming to write the ending, and I was telling him about the manuscript, and he said, "Well, he can't be healed. I mean, that's going to be cheesy and
Right.
unbelievable."
Yeah.
So we talked through some things and I came up with something. But
Right.
yeah, you've got, and I think over time and book after book, I've learned that more and more
Mhm.
of how to be more realistic. Just take it where it's going to go.
Right. Right.
You've created these characters, let them do what they're going to do,
Yep.
whether
Yep.
you like it as the author or not.
I know. Sometimes I'm kind of like, darn, I wanted a better happily ever after for
Yeah.
you, but sorry, it's not happening.
Yeah. And some characters you really like that are going to have to
Right.
disappear or something not good is
Mhm.
going to happen.
Right.
So,
Yeah, exactly. I had one book that I wrote where the villain, I had the villain and I had the villain figured out, and it was about 3/4 of the way through the book, and I just went, "You didn't do it. They did it. She did it." And all of a sudden I'm like, but I like her. But what? Oh, she's
so,
evil.
I mean, when that happens to me, I
Yeah.
get chills. And it's
Yeah.
like, this is going to be really good, even though
Mhm.
I may not be thrilled with it.
Right, exactly. You're kind of like, "Darn, I really like that character, but oh well,"
Yeah.
and you just kind of go with it. Because if they're
Yeah.
evil, they're evil. I mean, their voice just comes out and they tell you so.
True. True.
So how many books have you written? Like, if I were to look at my bookshelf and fill them with your novels, how many would be on?
Just dropped not too long ago, number 14.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right.
I
Awesome.
had 6 traditionally published,
Mhm.
got all the rights back to those, and have really been really delving seriously into indie publishing for the last 5 years.
Okay. All right. Awesome.
Yeah.
And yours are mostly, I mean, they're the suspenseful and it's set in contemporary time, correct? We're not talking
Correct.
historical or anything like that. It's all current.
Yep. Yep. And I try to hit on, current day topics.
Mhm.
My most recent thriller is called Celebrity Pastor.
Okay.
It's about I was watching some documentaries on some wealthy
Mhm.
pastors who have committed some
Yeah.
crimes, and I just got really interested in it and thought, what's this doing to these families? What's it doing to their churches?
Right.
The people who serve them in the churches? And so you know, each book kind of, um, I kind of try to tackle the,
Yeah.
issues that are controversial.
Mhm. Mhm.
You know,
Yeah.
so
That's an interesting one to tackle too, because I haven't seen the celebrity pastor tackled so much in fiction, especially probably within inspirational fiction, honestly. So,
right.
um,
Well,
you dared to go there. You
in,
dared.
in fact, as I was writing, I thought this isn't very inspirational. It's not very bright. It was dark.
Yeah.
And so about a quarter way through it, I thought I'm going to add discussion questions at the end, which I
Mm.
normally don't do,
Mhm.
because I felt like that would balance it out,
Right.
where the readers could get together in book clubs and discuss some of these issues.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like we were in a church one time, and this comes up in a book where
Okay.
I was seriously involved, and just some things happened, and we left, and we were hurt by the
Mhm.
church.
Mhm.
And that's what happens in Celebrity Pastor,
Yeah.
and some of the discussion questions touch on
Yeah. Yeah.
that type of thing. You know what I mean?
Oh, totally. I think it's an important topic. I think it's an important one to be addressed openly, especially within Christian fiction, because there are so many people who have had bad or hurtful church experiences. And sometimes I think within Christianity, we try to, for whatever reason, gloss over that. And I'm not sure why we
Right.
do.
Yeah, I agree. And a lot of it, from what I found in my research, is due to the insular culture that some of these churches have,
Okay.
where the pastor calls the shots. There's
Mm,
not much accountability. There's more of a fan club than accountability.
right. Right.
And in this book in particular, the those that he surrounds himself with are, they're involved basically with the problems.
Yeah.
They're complicit.
Hmm. Yeah.
So
It almost seems like it would be hard to not have leadership somewhat complicit with pastors that are
yeah,
misbehaving or misconduct because Otherwise, they would be held accountable, like you said, for it.
Yeah.
So, my mom always said, she said, Jamie, when you go to a church that you've never been to before, run away if they're selling popcorn and cotton candy at the front door.
Oh, all kinds these days.
Yeah. Yeah. She says that's usually a sign that they're not really diving into the word of God. And
Yeah.
I don't know how true that is, but it was kind of funny.
Uh,
But so within that book, so that was Celebrity Pastor. How then do you bring in like suspense and thrill? Because that almost sounds like a church problem book. So how do you have suspense and thrill in something
oh,
like
that's a
that?
good question. Good question. So one of the women volunteers at the church who is married
Hmm.
and has kids is the subject of the pastor's advances.
Okay.
And she's brought before the church board to kind of investigate what's really going on.
Hmm.
And it's just it more than like action suspense. It's more tension. It's
Okay.
more that's what I'm talking about when I talk about tension. Is
Yep.
you're so rooting for her
Okay.
uh, that you just got to find out what happens next.
Yeah.
That type of thing.
Yeah.
Um, Also, he is having an ongoing relationship with someone, and she starts to discover what's going on,
Okay.
and he sends someone to get her, and he's not really sure what he's going to do about the
Hmm.
situation.
Yeah.
So things like that.
Yeah. Yeah. So a little bit of the psychological thrill of
Yeah,
where's this going? What's going to happen?
yeah,
Yeah. Is she going to win or is he going to win?
right,
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
right.
that's cool. So, and I think it's kind of neat. I love those types of stories where you get really wrapped up, not just emotionally, but psychologically.
Mhm.
And especially when you have situations like that where there's kind of like these blurred lines, like you have the authority of a pastor according to tradition, that authority is being abused. And then you have a woman who, according to tradition, is to be silent or submissive. And how do you merge and marry those concepts
Right.
with today's culture and keep it biblical?
Yeah, exactly. And I think one of the interesting things about the book is the pastor's wife has gotten attached to the income they make, the
Hmm.
houses they have,
Yeah.
yet she is discovering too what's going on. So
Hmm.
it's really about her relationship with God because she's wandering
Mm,
and she needs to awake from her slumber and
right.
figure this out and
Right.
make it right.
Yeah.
So she's got to get her big boy pants on at the end,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's it's pretty intense.
That sounds pretty intense. So how do you like okay, so if we have listeners who are listening right now and they're going, "Oh, that sounds like a great book," and it also sounds scarily like the situation that I'm in at my church. How do you take fiction that you're putting into a book and then pull out from it elements that a reader could say, hey, I could actually take this and apply it to my current situation? How do you, as a writer, see that working? And should readers do that when they're reading fiction?
I think absolutely, and the way one of the ways I do that is with scripture.
Okay.
It may not be um, verse by verse in the book,
Hmm.
but it's kind of lived out organically through the good characters. Like for instance, the lady who was cheating with the pastor, her husband is a main character in the book.
Okay.
And he gets in some trouble trying to figure out what's going to happen. But anyway, yeah, the good arises through him. And
Hmm.
also, especially in this book, not so much my others, the discussion questions too bring it back
Yeah. Yeah.
to the helpfulness stuff,
Hmm. Hmm.
Um,
I've heard of readers too, like taking the discussion questions in books, and even if they're not in a book club, actually journaling the discussion questions on their own, like, they'll take them and write
oh,
down the
yeah, that's
question and do personal application that way.
yeah, absolutely,
Yeah,
for
yeah.
sure.
And then, so you said, okay, so then I want to move on to the book before that, because you said you wrote the story I Am in Here,
Right.
which is how, okay, I'm sorry. How do you write a book from the viewpoint of somebody who's essentially trapped inside themselves?
Yeah. So I was worried about that, of
That's gotta
course. I
be
didn't know
tough.
it was going to work.
Yeah.
So I just started writing it, and from his perspective,
Mm-hmm.
at home in his hospital bed, he's tube fed. He's 18,
Okay.
um, and I didn't know if it was going to work or not.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Here, let me give you the seed of the idea. Years and years ago, I knew someone who was in a drowning accident,
Okay.
and he was in the same condition as this boy. And I went
Mm.
to visit him each week and read scripture to him and played music. So that's where I got to know the kind of what the environment was like.
Right, right.
So that's where the idea came from. But then, I just plowed into started writing it and ended up going on kind of a sequence where one chapter would be from his point of view and one from his dad's,
Okay.
and back and forth.
Yep. Yep.
And he's got a Cruella de Vil for a stepmother who doesn't want him around anymore because it's ruined their
They're
marriage.
right. Yeah.
Um, and she's a drinker and so forth. And
Mm-hmm.
they are in trouble with people that have loaned them money who
Okay.
want the money back.
Mm-hmm.
So he's witness to all this.
Okay. Wow. And yet he can't really do
Right.
anything.
He no way to communicate.
Wow. Wow.
He's got a best friend, Gilbert, who comes in to read and play music with him and talk to him as if he's normal.
Mm-hmm.
And Gilbert starts catching on to some things that are going on. So
Okay. All right.
uh,
Does
I'm not great at summing up my book.
no writer is. Every writer's like, I don't know what's my book about. I don't know. People.
Yeah.
There's people in the book and things happen.
Read
And
the description I'm
I
in.
know exactly. Well, in this one, I'm looking on your website right now, and it says that there's a deranged loan shark who's after Hale's father, and Hal is realizing there's something very wrong in his household, and yet he's trapped within himself. So that's got to be a tricky spot to be. So
Yeah.
interesting,
Yeah.
interesting.
I think a lot of the interest is what goes on in his head.
Yeah, yeah,
Like, I'm in here.
right.
And you're speaking to me like this and you're talking to each other like that about me,
Mm-hmm.
it's an
Mm-hmm.
eye opener. And
Yeah.
when I was writing, I'm like, wow, this is crazy.
Well, I've heard too that there are situations where people have assumed that the individual is essentially brain dead and they're not. And then it's
But
discovered, months to years later that they've been very aware. And I'm just kind of like, it's almost a claustrophobic feeling I get when I start imagining being in that situation where you can't communicate, but yet you're very aware.
yeah, I agree. In fact, I'm reading a book right now about Randy Travis, the country singer,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and um, all the things that have happened to him over the years and his current health state. But he says the exact thing you just said. He said, don't ever speak about anyone in their presence. Uh, you know,
Right.
it just don't do it. Period.
Right. Right. Yeah. I always assume that they're there, that they're there. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, and even with, my father with Alzheimer's, it's been an interesting journey, and you can see the decline of the mind, but yet you can still see my father, right? And so having those conversations and making sure that the value for that individual is still given. And last night was probably one of the coolest dad moments I've had in a long time. I had him come out to our house, and my husband's gone, so it's just me and my daughter home. And my dad was going into his reflective mode, like, are you feel safe out here, and do you need me to spend the night? And I'm thinking, oh honey, like, even if I did, I don't think you're going to be able to do what dads do in your
mm,
condition. And we were driving home. He doesn't have his license or anything, and I have an older brother. And he goes, well, he says, honey, if you need something, if you need me, now I can't drive, but if you need me, you call and I'll call your brother and he'll come get me and we'll be out there as soon as we can. And, there's that moment where you're just kind of like, you could patronize him. You could, well, Dad, that wouldn't be very helpful, and I was just like, awesome. I said, thank you, Dad, for having my back. I said,
Absolutely.
it's so great to know that you are still there for me
Yeah.
and my brother's there. And I said, it's great to have both of you around. And I said,
Oh,
I
yeah.
will call you if I need something, Dad.
Oh,
And just trying to give that validation
yes.
that regardless of what your health condition is, your mental condition, etc., you have the value and what you're telling and communicating to people has value. And I think it's so
Yes.
important.
Absolutely. That's the way to handle that.
Yeah. Yeah.
You just got to get on the bus and ride along with them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And the fact of the matter is, in a pinch, if I had to call my dad and have him call my brother, they would both do that. That scenario would actually play out. And it's one of those things like knowing that you've got people who love and care so much,
Yeah.
and that are willing to be that protective is cool. So,
Yeah.
all right,
That's,
Jamie's hopping off her soapbox, but I'm always big on making sure people feel valued, you know, in those situations. So it's awesome.
absolutely.
And
Yeah.
I love that you wrote a book from that perspective too.
Yeah.
You didn't write about the person, but you wrote from their perspective, which I think is cool.
Yeah. It's sad in some ways, but in other ways, it's really uh, uplifting too.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It is. And it's always cool in my mind. I'm always like, then there's that concept of the ultimate healing when we come face to face with the Lord. We're restored to what we were supposed to be. And I'm like, maybe
Yeah.
I'll actually understand mathematics when my brain is restored
Yeah.
to its
Yeah,
full perfection.
exactly. Uh, in fact, there's a point in that book where the stepmother is going to do something she shouldn't to
Hmm.
him. And that's exactly what he thinks, is what you just said. Well, if I don't make it through this, at least in a few minutes, I know where I'll be. You know?
Yeah. 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 It brings, I told my daughter, I said, your mom's getting old. And I said, the older I get, the more I'm starting to understand what my mom always said when she said, the older I get, the closer heaven and eternity becomes more and more real. Like when I was my daughter's age at 14, I was like, don't talk about the Lord coming back. I have a life to live. I got things to do. And then you get into your 40s and you're like, oh, wow, eternity's getting closer.
Wait till you get in your 60s and see what it feels. I'm serious. I feel more eternally now than I ever have.
I believe it. I believe it.
Yeah.
Well, you start realizing how short our life here on earth is, but then you also start realizing how real eternity is, and that becomes super exciting in a
Yeah.
in a way that's really hard to describe to a 14-year-old
Yeah.
kid, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, all right, so we've had fun talking about your books. You've got some other ones here too. I'm looking on your website that have crime, murder, homeless millionaires.
Yeah.
I mean, this is interesting. People are going to want to check you out if they haven't already. So,
Yeah, do so. I mean,
yeah, lots of books to read. I mean, can we ever have too many?
no, I'm one of yours now.
Oh, I apologize in advance for that.
No, you made them sound pretty interesting. I'm going to check them out.
Now, making them sound interesting and having them be interesting are two different things. Oh man. Okay, so if readers do want to find out more about you, want to find out about your books, get that free book by signing up for your newsletter, what's the best place for them to do that at?
Yeah, just go to CrestonMapes.com and a little box will pop up to get that free book,
Mm-hmm.
or go to Amazon and all my books are on there. They're in audio, paperback, hardback, ebook.
Great.
Love to have you get on board.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And readers, if you do read a Creston Mapes book, I always say leave a review because
Oh,
reviews are like the biggest gifts you can give an author. Even if you didn't like the book, be honest. But the review is still important to us because
Yeah, reviews are everything.
it helps us. I mean, I found out one time that I used too many examples of a bedside table in one of my books. Who knew? Who knew that would make it into a review?
Yeah, no, I get it.
They just said, "You can stop telling me the table's by the bed, because if they reach over and put their glass on the bedside table, I know it's by the bed because they're in the bed. Stop telling me it's in the bed." It was a great review because I was like, "Dude, that's true. I'm being redundant."
I've actually learned a lot from reviews and corrections to my ebooks, you know.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
know. I know. Just be nice when you do it. Just be nice. That's what I say. Just be
that's,
gentle. Be gentle.
I don't expect to get negative reviews though.
I will admit, I'm the strange writer that goes and I will actually filter so that I only see the 1 and 2 stars because I actually want to read them because I find them
Oh,
so interesting.
oh wow.
I find them so interesting because they either give you some really good feedback and you're like, "Oh, that's good feedback. I need to learn from that." Or they're funny. Sometimes they're funny.
Yeah.
Um, and I had one-star review once saying, "She's finally done it. She's finally done it." And that was like the title. And I'm like, what did I finally do? And I clicked on it and it was like, "She's finally crossed over into the occult." And I was like, I just started laughing and I'm like, oh my, if you think this is the occult, then don't really study the occult because it's
Oh,
terrifying.
the ones that kill me are the ones that say this was an amazing book and they gave it 1 star.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
Sometimes I'm kind of like, I think their mouse or their finger slipped when they did
yeah.
that. Or you get the 1-star reviews where it's like, the packaging on this book could have been better. It was ripped packaging when it arrived at my house.
Oh
I'm like,
man, yeah.
I had nothing to do with that.
Those are the best.
But anyway, that's my plug. If you read one of Creston's books, make sure you leave a review. And if you're going to give them a 1-star, just be nice.
Be
But give them
nice.
a 5-star because 5 stars are great. We love those. So
We'll learn from it if they're bad.
absolutely. Oh man, this has been so much fun to have you on. Thank you so much for being part of our world today.
Thank you for having me. Let's do it again.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining Madlit Musings, where every conversation is a journey and every book is a new adventure. Subscribe now on your favorite podcast player or check us out on YouTube, and let's explore the fascinating intersection of faith, society, and storytelling together.